In this video, we get to make some changes, some configuration changes on the active firewall and see how those are replicated over to the passive. So let me click on refresh here, and it says it is synchronized. Fantastic. So let's do this. Let's go to policies. Now, this is part of the PCNSE track here at CBT Nuggets. If you have not yet been with me through the PCNSA, that's the admin track, it's in those videos where we covered all the basics and fundamentals regarding policies, including security policies and network address translation. So as we continue on in further sets as part of PCNSE, we'll take a look at some more advanced options for those. But for this demonstration, I'm just going to do a couple of quick policies and some rules to allow traffic to flow from the inside to the outside, and all those changes that we implement should be replicated over to the passive firewall. So before we set up NAT and security, we probably ought to have some network connectivity. So let's click on network and go to interfaces, and let me set up interface 1/1 as a layer 3 interface, and it'll be on our inside going to our corporate network, and I'll use the default virtual router, and let me set up a brand new security zone because I don't have one yet, and we'll call that zone inside. And we'll click on OK. And once again, as far as a refresher here goes, if you haven't yet checked out the videos as part of PCNSA, all this fundamental content is in those videos. So on the IPv4 tab, let's give it an IPv4 address, and we're going to use 10.1.0.11 with a 24-bit mask, and that looks great. So that is the inside interface. We'll click on OK, and let's go ahead and do similar treatment for the outside interface, which is 1/3. So we'll click on 1/3. We'll go ahead and specify it's a layer 3 interface. We'll associate it with the default virtual router, and we'll create a new security zone called outside, and click on OK. The IP address, and click on add, and we'll give it 23.1.2.11 with a 24-bit mask, and that looks OK too. All right, that's the outside interface. Default router, IPv4 address looks good. Click on OK. All right, now the other problem is that once we commit this, he won't know, this firewall, and also its peer, its HA peer, won't know how to get out to the internet because they don't have a default route. So also while we're here, we'll click on virtual routers. We'll click on the default virtual router, and let's add a static route that says, hey, to get off here, here's where you go. So we'll create a default route called default. The default route is 0.0.0.0/0. And the egress interface we're going to use is 1/3, which we just configured. And the next hop is 23.1.2.1, which is my little lab router. We could also do path monitoring here. We'll save that for another discussion. And let's click on OK. All right, we have a default route. We'll click on OK. We have a couple of zones, inside and outside. We've got interfaces in those. We've got IP addresses on those. And we have routing. All right, let's go to policies, and let's make a quick NAT policy for translation out to the internet for our internal users. So under policies and NAT, we'll click on add, and let's call this int out pat because we're going to overload on that outside address on the firewall, and we could add tags if we wanted to. Let's go ahead and do the original packet. Anybody coming from the inside who's going to the outside, you qualify for address translation. And for translation, let's do dynamic IP and port, which is effectively port address translation. And for the address type, we'll go to the interface on the firewall, and that's going to be interface 1/3, and the IP address is that bad boy. So we're going to pat everybody who's going through the firewall, going to the internet, we're going to pat it to that outside IP address on the firewall. And we'll click on OK. And then for security, we need to go ahead and permit the interzone traffic because it's not going to be allowed by default. So under policies, we'll click on security, click on add, and let's call this into out security, and we'll click on source, and we'll add anybody coming from the inside, going to the outside, regardless of application, regardless of URL category or port. The action is going to be allow, and let's just log at the beginning, and that looks great. We'll click on OK. All right, there's our rule. I think that's everything we need, so we'll go ahead and click on commit, and commit again. And here is what I would expect to have happen, and that is if the client is going out to the internet, going through the active firewall, which is going to be firewall 1, using the HA links that we configured, not only will the configuration be replicated over to firewall 2, but also the stateful information as clients go through the firewall. So if we're sending traffic through the firewall and then this firewall goes away, firewall 2 should become active, and this client should still have connectivity, just like it did before, going out to the internet. But this time it would be firewall 2 as the active firewall that would be supporting our data plane traffic. And here's what we get to do. In the next video, let's bring up a client on the inside on the 10.1 corporate network, and let's give it a shot. We'll take down Firewall 1 and make sure that our high availability is actually working. I'll see you in the next video for that test in just a moment. Meanwhile, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.